So, picture this. You're outside playing, the streetlights haven't even come on yet, and you just think everything is perfect.
Right, the classic childhood evening.
Exactly. But then, like, the script flips in a split second, and you are left completely disoriented. Today, we're stepping inside a memory exactly like that for our deep dive.
Yeah, we're looking at an essay called S1E2 Explosion.
Right. It's from Chasey Delaney's upcoming collection, The Firing Line. And the mission today is to look at one heartbreaking childhood afternoon through two very different lenses.
The 5 year old girl who actually lived it and the adult she became.
Yeah, a writer who is navigating life with schizophrenia. We're going to see how she uses this single frozen memory to, well, unearth her authentic identity today.
It is such a powerful starting point. I mean, 5 year old Chasey is out in her avenue playing a street game called Kirby with two older friends.
And suddenly these friends just say they have to go inside for tea and they completely abandon her.
Yeah, they don't come back.
It's awful. She describes like white knuckling her fraying leather football, desperately trying to convince herself they're just playing a spontaneous game of hide and seek.
Right, because the alternative is just too painful for a 5 year old to process.
I kept thinking it's like bracing for a cinematic jump scare in a horror movie, but the scare never actually happens.
Oh, that's a really great way to put it.
Yeah, you're just stuck in this suspended, agonizing anxiety waiting for the relief of them jumping out, but they don't.
And her child brain intuitively uses that physical leather ball as an anchor to reality. She is literally digging her raw fingernails into it.
Like a grounding technique.
Exactly. It prevents her from emotionally collapsing into the trauma of abandonment right there on the street.
Hmm.
It grounds her while her internal world is just, completely spinning.
But then, decades later, her adult schizophrenic mind processes this event entirely differently.
She realizes the brutal truth, which is that her friends didn't go in for tea.
No, they didn't. They intentionally hid from her because they disliked her. And she writes this line. She says, "A delayed truth is as bad as or worse than the original lie."
That line just hits so hard. Because that sudden realization that people lie, it didn't just stay out on the street.
Right.
A 5 year old mind can't process complex social gray areas. So she didn't just think, oh, those girls are mean. Her literal brain processed it as reality is a trick.
Wow. So is this devastating feeling purely a trauma response? Or did it expose that 5-year-old Chasey already had this incredibly high, almost rigid standard for sincerity?
Well, it's a bit of both.
Yeah.
That rigid interpretation of the event is the exact mechanism that seeded her adult paranoia.
Because she realized most people don't possess that same sincerity.
Exactly. She calls it her erosionist belief system.
Erosionist, meaning her foundational trust in people was literally eroding away.
Yes, forcing her to build these massive walls. She had a predisposition for literal honesty, but the environment really triggered the adaptation.
When that extreme sincerity collided with social deception, she just had to learn to be highly guarded.
Right. She became suspicious as a literal survival mechanism against a world that didn't share her literalism.
So she carries that new heavy suspicion right through her front door to her Nana.
And her Nana tells her to just ignore those girls and instead makes a little sleeping bag for her Barbie dolls.
Which is so sweet, but as a child, Chasey actually internalized this as a punishment.
Yeah, she thought she was being forced to stay inside because nobody wanted her to be happy.
But looking back, she realizes her Nana was actually protecting her from a harsh world. Chasey calls it the greenhouse effect.
I love that concept so much.
Right. Think about how a greenhouse actually functions. It doesn't change the fact that it's freezing outside.
No, it creates an artificial, controlled microclimate so fragile things can survive.
Exactly. Her Nana was building a social greenhouse so Chasey's core softness wouldn't freeze over.
And she frames her entire adult identity around that misunderstanding. I mean, she acknowledges she was dealt a really tough hand with genetics, the abandonment, the trauma.
But Nana's love acted like the sun,
It really did. It planted beautiful seeds in what Chasey calls the concrete of her soul.
helping her realize that despite everything, her authentic, soft core didn't actually wither.
She has really shifted from being a victim to the architect of her own identity.
It really forces you to look at your own past, like how many of our early misunderstandings of protection are secretly dictating our adult boundaries today?
That is the big question.
Chasey comes to the realization that while her Nana planted the seeds, it's ultimately up to her whether she will, quote, dither or bloom when her mind explodes.
Which is such a powerful place to land.
It is. And we want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. If our deepest adult personality traits are sometimes just childhood survival strategies running on a loop, which of your personal quirks is actually a tiny shield you built long ago and simply forgot to put down?